Imagine waking up one morning and discovering that the person staring back at you in the mirror is a complete stranger. Not because your face has changed, but because you suddenly see through the elaborate performance you've been giving for decades. Every smile, every yes, every moment of bending yourself into shapes that make others comfortable, all of it crumbles in an instant of devastating clarity. The voice in your head whispers the question you've been running from. When did I stop being myself and become what everyone else needed me to be? Picture this moment of reckoning. You realize that your kindness isn't really kindness at all. It's fear wearing a mask. Your helpfulness isn't generosity. It's desperation dressed up as virtue. Your agreeableness isn't love. It's terror of abandonment disguised as harmony. Carl Jung, one of psychology's most penetrating minds, saw through this charade with brutal precision. He understood that people-pleasers aren't the saints they appear to be. They're prisoners. And the cruelest part? They're both the prisoner and the guard. Jung's message to chronic people-pleasers cuts like a blade. You are not kind. You are in bondage. You don't serve others out of love. You serve them out of fear. That might sound harsh. It might make you want to close this and walk away. But if you stay, if you have the courage to look deeper, you'll discover why millions of people live their entire lives as actors in someone else's play, never once stepping into the spotlight of their own authentic existence. Think about your last week. How many times did you say yes when every fiber of your being wanted to say no? How many times did you smile through discomfort, swallow your opinion, or abandon your needs to keep someone else happy? How many times did you betray yourself in the name of being good? Here's the paradox that will shatter everything you thought you knew about human connection. The more you try to be loved by pleasing others, the less lovable you become. Not because you're doing something wrong, but because you're not doing anything authentic. You're offering the world a performance, and deep down, everyone can sense it's not real. Jung called this false self, the persona, the mask we wear to navigate social situations. It serves a purpose, helping us function in society. But it becomes dangerous when we forget it's just a mask, when we mistake the performance for our true identity. You smile when you're breaking inside. You say yes when your whole being screams no. You become everything to everyone and nothing to yourself. This, Jung warned, is the ultimate betrayal of the soul. If you're drawn to understanding the hidden layers of human behavior, if you want to explore what it truly means to live authentically, you're in the right place. Subscribe and join this journey into the depths of self-discovery. Leave a like if this resonates with something you felt but never put into words, because what you'll learn isn't just advice. It's a confrontation with the most terrifying question you'll ever face. Are you living your life, or is your life living you? But here's what I need you to understand before we go deeper. We're going to explore 3 brutal revelations that Jung discovered about people-pleasing. Each one cuts deeper than the last. The first will make you uncomfortable. The second will make you angry. But the third, the final revelation, has the power to completely shatter how you see yourself, your relationships, and your entire existence. I'm warning you now. The final insight we'll uncover is so powerful, so earth-shattering, that it will divide your life into before and after. Some people can't handle it. They turn away at the last moment, choosing the comfortable prison of people-pleasing over the terrifying freedom of authenticity. Stay with me until the end. Don't let the discomfort drive you away when we reach the darkest parts of this journey. Because on the other side of that darkness lies something extraordinary, a way of living that most people never discover, a freedom that most people never taste, a love that doesn't require performance. The final revelation is coming, and it might just save your life. But why do we do it? Why do we sacrifice ourselves on the altar of other people's comfort? The answer lies buried in the earliest moments of our existence, in the fundamental programming that shaped how we learn to survive in this world. It starts before you can even remember. As children, we discovered that love could vanish in an instant. One moment, your parents smile and hold you close. The next, their faces darken with disapproval. and suddenly you're alone in a universe that feels hostile and cold. Your small, developing mind makes a desperate calculation. If I can just be what they want me to be, the love will return. Jung understood that this early conditioning creates what he called a complex, an autonomous psychic structure that operates below the threshold of consciousness, driving our behavior without our awareness. The people-pleasing complex is born from this primal terror of abandonment, and it grows stronger every time our authentic self is met with rejection, criticism, or withdrawal of affection. But there's something far more sinister happening here than simple childhood programming. French philosopher Jean-Paul Sartre recognized that we become complicit in our own imprisonment. We don't just adapt to others' expectations, we internalize them so completely that we begin to police ourselves. We become what Sartre called beings for others, existing not as subjects of our own lives, but as objects in someone else's story. Consider the psychological mechanism at work. Every time you suppress your anger to avoid conflict, you teach your psyche that anger is dangerous. Every time you minimize your needs to make room for others, you train your unconscious to believe you don't matter. Every time you perform happiness when you're in pain, you create a deeper split between who you are and who you present to the world. This split is what Jung called the divide between the persona and the shadow. The persona becomes the acceptable self, polite, accommodating, harmless. The shadow becomes the repository for everything we've deemed unacceptable. Our rage, our selfishness, our desires, our power. But here's the crucial insight. The shadow doesn't disappear. It festers. Arthur Schopenhauer saw through the illusion of altruism centuries before Jung. He understood that what we call selflessness often masks a profound selfishness, not the healthy selfishness of self-preservation, but the desperate selfishness of someone trying to buy love with compliance. The people-pleaser isn't giving, they're bargaining. Every act of service comes with an invisible price tag. Please don't leave me. This creates what psychologists now recognize as a trauma bond, not with an abusive partner, but with the entire social world. You become addicted to the brief moments of approval that follow your self-sacrifice, even as the long-term cost destroys your sense of self. Like any addiction, it requires increasing doses to achieve the same high. You must please more, sacrifice more, disappear more completely. Friedrich Nietzsche warned of the slave morality that emerges from this dynamic, the belief that suffering, self-denial, and submission are virtues. The people-pleaser doesn't just submit to others' will. They make a religion out of their submission, convincing themselves that their self-betrayal is actually nobility. But perhaps most devastating of all is how this pattern becomes generational. Children of people-pleasers learn that love is conditional, that authenticity is dangerous, that their needs matter less than maintaining harmony. They watch their parents disappear piece by piece, and they unconsciously absorb the lesson. This is what love looks like. The hidden problem isn't that we're too kind or too giving. The hidden problem is that we've confused self-annihilation with virtue, compliance with compassion, and fear with love. We've built our entire identity on a foundation of sand, and now we're terrified to look down and see how far we might fall. Now comes the part that will make you angry. Because once you see what people-pleasing actually costs, not just you, but everyone around you, you'll realize that this isn't just a personal problem. It's a social epidemic that's quietly destroying the fabric of authentic human connection. Here's the first devastating consequence. People-pleasers don't actually please people. They enable them. They create a toxic dynamic where others never have to face their own emotional immaturity, never have to develop resilience, never have to learn how to handle disappointment or conflict. By constantly accommodating everyone else's dysfunction, you become complicit in keeping them weak. Think about it. When you always say yes to unreasonable requests, you rob others of the opportunity to learn boundaries. When you constantly manage other people's emotions, you prevent them from developing emotional intelligence. When you sacrifice your needs to avoid their discomfort, you teach them that their feelings are more important than anyone else's reality. Jung understood this dynamic with chilling clarity. He saw that what we call helping often becomes a form of psychological violence, not intentional, but devastating nonetheless. You become what psychologists now call an enabler, someone who perpetuates dysfunction by refusing to let others face the natural consequences of their behavior. But the consequences go deeper than enabling. People pleasers create what researchers call emotional labor inequality. You absorb everyone else's anxiety, anger, and chaos, while they remain blissfully unaware of the emotional weight they're forcing others to carry. They don't even know they're doing it because you've trained them to expect your constant accommodation. Viktor Frankl, a Holocaust survivor and psychologist, discovered something profound about human behavior. People need meaningful struggle to develop character. When you remove all struggle from someone's life by constantly smoothing their path, you rob them of the very experiences that would help them grow into mature, capable human beings. Here's where it gets even more disturbing. People pleasers often attract narcissists, emotional vampires, and users precisely because they signal their willingness to be exploited. Your kindness becomes a beacon for those who lack empathy, who see your accommodating nature not as generosity, but as weakness to be manipulated. The neuroscience reveals something equally shocking. When you chronically suppress your authentic responses, your brain literally rewires itself. The neural pathways associated with self-advocacy atrophy from disuse, while the pathways associated with submission and compliance grow stronger. You're not just choosing to please others. You're programming your brain to lose the ability to do anything else. Dr. Gabor Mate's research on stress and disease shows that chronic people-pleasing doesn't just affect your mind, it attacks your body. The constant state of internal conflict, the endless suppression of authentic emotion, the relentless self-abandonment, all of this manifests as autoimmune disorders, chronic fatigue, depression, and anxiety. Your body literally rebels against the betrayal of your soul. The most devastating consequence isn't what people-pleasing does to your relationships with others. It's what it does to your relationship with yourself. You become a stranger to your own desires, blind to your own needs, deaf to your own voice. You lose the ability to trust yourself because you've spent so long betraying yourself that you can no longer tell the difference between what you want and what others expect you to want. This is the price of the mask. This is the cost of the performance. And the tragedy is that most people-pleasers never realize they're paying it until the bill comes due in the form of complete emotional breakdown, devastating burnout, or the sudden, terrifying recognition that they have no idea who they actually are. But anger is good. Anger means you're waking up. And what comes next might just show you the way out. Here's where everything you've been taught about goodness, kindness, and morality gets turned upside down. Because the path to freedom requires you to do something that will feel like the most selfish, cruel, destructive thing imaginable. You must learn to disappoint people. Jung called this process individuation, the journey of becoming who you actually are rather than who others need you to be. But don't let the clinical term fool you. This isn't therapy. This is revolution. This is the overthrow of every system of control that has kept you enslaved to other people's expectations. The first act of rebellion is the simplest and the hardest. You must start saying no. Not the apologetic, over-explained, guilt-ridden no of the people-pleaser, but the clean, clear, unapologetic no of someone who understands that their needs matter as much as anyone else's. When you say no without justification, something extraordinary happens in the people around you. They experience what psychologists call cognitive dissonance, the discomfort that arises when reality doesn't match their expectations. They've been conditioned to expect your compliance, and your refusal short-circuits their programming. Some will rage, some will guilt you, some will try to negotiate, bargain, or manipulate you back into submission. This isn't because you're doing something wrong. It's because you're doing something right. You're forcing them to confront their own emotional immaturity, their own inability to handle disappointment, their own addiction to your self-sacrifice. Friedrich Nietzsche understood this dynamic when he wrote about the transvaluation of values, the process of questioning everything you've been taught to believe is good and noble. The people pleaser must undergo their own transvaluation, recognizing that what they've called virtue is actually vice, and what they've called selfishness might actually be self-respect. Consider the revolutionary figures throughout history who changed the world. Gandhi, refusing to comply with unjust laws. Rosa Parks, saying no to giving up her bus seat. Martin Luther King Jr., disappointing those who wanted him to be quiet and patient. They understood that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is refuse to enable others' dysfunction. But here's the counterintuitive truth that will shatter your old programming. When you stop trying to be liked by everyone, you become genuinely likable. When you stop performing kindness and start embodying authenticity, people are drawn to your realness. When you stop being everything to everyone, you become something meaningful to the right people. The rebellion requires you to reclaim what Jung called your shadow, all the parts of yourself you've been taught to suppress. Your anger is not evil. It's information about your boundaries. Your selfishness is not cruel. It's your soul's attempt to survive. Your needs are not burdens. They're the requirements for your own flourishing. Ancient Stoic philosophers like Marcus Aurelius understood that true strength comes not from enduring everything others throw at you, but from choosing what you will and will not accept. The emperor who commanded vast armies wrote in his private journal, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." The practical work of rebellion begins with radical honesty. Start by telling the truth about small things. When someone asks how you are, don't automatically say fine if you're not fine. When someone suggests an activity you don't want to do, don't smile and agree. When someone makes a request that doesn't serve you, don't instantly comply. Each small act of honesty is a declaration of independence. Each boundary you set is a reclamation of your sovereignty. Each time you choose your truth over others' comfort, you strengthen the atrophied muscles of your authentic self. You must learn to recognize this voice and refuse its authority. When it whispers, "You're being selfish," you must answer, "Good. I'm finally caring for myself." When it warns, "People won't like you," you must respond, "Then they never liked the real me anyway." When it threatens, "You'll be alone," you must declare, "Better alone and authentic than surrounded by people who love my mask." The rebellion culminates in what existential philosophers call authentic existence, living from your own center rather than from others' expectations. This doesn't mean becoming cruel or indifferent. It means becoming real. And reality, Jung knew, has a power that performance can never match. When you live authentically, you give others permission to do the same. When you refuse to enable dysfunction, you create space for others to grow. When you honor your own needs, you model what healthy self-love looks like. This is how you heal not just yourself, but the world around you. One authentic choice at a time. Now we arrive at the revelation that changes everything. The insight so profound that Jung himself called it the greatest discovery of his life. The truth that will either liberate you completely or send you running back to the comfortable prison of people-pleasing. Here it is. You are not here to be loved by others. You are here to love yourself so completely that your love becomes contagious. Let that penetrate every cell of your being. You have been living backwards. You have been seeking on the outside what can only be found within. You have been begging for acceptance from a world that is itself desperately seeking the very thing you're afraid to give yourself. Jung discovered that every human being carries within them what he called the self. Not the small self of the ego, not the performed self of the persona, but the vast, eternal, unshakable self that exists beyond all roles, beyond all masks, beyond all need for external validation. This self doesn't need to be created. It needs to be remembered. The ultimate tragedy of the people-pleaser isn't that they love others too much. It's that they have forgotten how to love themselves at all. They have mistaken self-abandonment for virtue, self-betrayal for compassion, self-hatred for humility. But here's the earth-shattering truth. You cannot give what you do not have. You cannot love others authentically until you love yourself unconditionally. When Jung wrote, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely," he wasn't speaking metaphorically. He was describing the hero's journey that every human being must take. The journey from seeking love to being love. From needing acceptance to offering acceptance. From trying to be worthy to recognizing that you were born worthy. But this realization brings with it the most devastating grief you will ever experience. You must mourn the years you lost betraying yourself. You must grieve the relationships built on false foundations. You must weep for the authentic self you buried beneath layers of performance. This grief is not optional. It is the birth canal through which your true self must pass. The philosopher Rainer Maria Rilke understood this when he wrote, "The only journey is the one within." Every external search for validation, every desperate attempt to be loved, every performance designed to win approval, all of it has been a detour from the only journey that matters, the journey home to yourself. And here's the miracle that Jung witnessed again and again in his work. When you finally stop seeking love and start being love, the entire universe shifts. Not because the world changes, but because you are no longer looking at it through the lens of need. You are looking at it through the lens of wholeness. People sense this wholeness in you. They are drawn to it because it's so rare in a world full of performers. Your authenticity gives them permission to be real. Your self-love shows them what's possible. Your boundaries teach them how to respect themselves. Without trying to please anyone, you become a healing presence in the world. This is what Jung meant by individuation. Not becoming selfish, but becoming whole. Not rejecting others, but integrating all the parts of yourself you've rejected. Not loving less, but loving from a place of fullness rather than emptiness. The ultimate truth is this: every moment you spend trying to be someone else is a moment stolen from the world. Because there is something unique and irreplaceable that only you can offer. There is a gift that only you can give, a perspective that only you can share, a love that only you can embody. But you can only offer this gift when you stop hiding behind masks and stand naked in your truth. The people who are meant to love you will love the real you. The people who can't handle your authenticity were never really loving you anyway. They were loving your performance. Let them go. Let them all go. Because on the other side of that letting go is the most extraordinary discovery. You don't need their love to be whole. You never did. You came into this world complete. The journey of people-pleasing has been a long detour from this truth, but every step you took away from yourself has given you the wisdom to find your way back. Every betrayal has shown you the value of loyalty to yourself. Every mask has taught you the pricelessness of authenticity. Jung's final insight was the most beautiful of all. When you love yourself completely, you become love itself. Not the needy, desperate, bargaining love of the people-pleaser, but the radiant, overflowing, unconditional love that heals everything it touches. This is who you really are. This is who you've always been. The only question is, are you finally ready to come home? Stop living to please others. Start living to honor the magnificent being you were created to be. The world is waiting for the real you. And the real you has been waiting for this moment your entire life. The journey begins now. Not tomorrow. Not when you feel ready. Now welcome home.